We will go right now to the full Senate hearing, confirmation hearing from the Senate Finance Committee on Rodney Scott.
Politics are politics, but I want everybody to know, if you look at my track record, the one thing you'll see consistently is transparency. In every one of these cases, what you see is what you get. Everybody makes mistakes. I believe the ones I've made were very minor. We learn from them and move forward. I don't know how to speculate on why they would try to smear the background.
What I didn't do is bring the chart that we've been using now for years, showing how President Trump pretty well secured the border, and then, through their want and desire, they totally opened up, let millions flood in this country completely unvetted. I'm thinking that maybe they don't really want to talk about that and discuss how now President Trump has successfully secured the border. They'd rather try and smear you and totally distract the American public. That would be my, what I would surmise. But again, I appreciate your past service, and I know you'll do an excellent job as commissioner. One question I have is, being a fiscal conservative, I was fully supportive of providing the administration the resources they need to not only secure the border, but deport, the however many millions of people that should be deported. Okay, and that's going to take resources. The swiftness with which this administration has secured the border, again, I don't want to just throw money at the problem. I want to make sure that we account for every dollar that we do spend. So that's my main question. Because no matter whenever we're talking about some kind of border security or some immigration bill, we're going to be throwing a lot of money at it. And the question I always ask, well, once we actually achieve it, we're not going to need all those detention beds. We're not going to need to spend all that money. We're not going to need all those additional border patrol because we've solved the problem. The problem with government is once you start spending, you continue to maintain those spending levels. So can you just address how you're going to look at those budgets? What kind of information you're going to provide to us? Because I'm hoping you'll be confirmed before we actually pass, whether it's a big, beautiful bill or do it in segments the way my preference would be. Will we have the detail in terms of exactly what CBP needs to do its job, which is going to be somewhat separate what we're going to need for ICE and the deportation efforts as well?
So if confirmed, I will do everything in my power to make sure that you get that information. One of the things I highlighted as chief, and I will do again if confirmed as commissioner, is ask a lot of questions and mandate that any proposal or even any daily work that's going on can be directly tied back to the border security mission, and not with some gray dotted line, a pretty good solid line. One of the examples within Border Patrol that we got out of that by looking at it was the border wall system, for example. When we tested that and proved it out in San Diego sector, we were able to show that it freed up 150 agents every 24 hours that could then be shifted to other areas that were more remote. That was a $28 million return on investment for the life cycle of that border wall. And it's examples like that I will push and drive as requirements for asks for CBP. Similarly, at the port of entry, that non-intrusive equipment can show how we save man hours. But the most important thing you mentioned already is reducing the flow of illegal activities so we can focus on those bigger threats with the resources we have.
But do you agree with me, and again, I'm absolutely amazed at how quickly the border has basically become secure. A secure border will actually reduce the amount of money we need to spend, correct? I mean, a secure border will save us money. It's not going to require additional funds.
I believe
to a point.
I believe a secure border will save all of America a ton of money and a ton of lives.
Okay. Again, look forward to working with you. And again, I apologize for the smear campaign.
All right. Thank you, Senator Johnson. And we do not have any other senators here to ask questions. And so Senator Wyden and I will make some wrap-up statements, and then we will conclude the hearing. I just want to thank you again, Mr. Scott, for appearing before us today. Whenever someone steps forward to accept a position of responsibility and serve in the public, these days it's intense, and there are battles. I appreciate you being willing to step up. And I also want to say thank you to all of the incredible people at the Border Patrol. for the service that they do, and you for the service that you have given that has made you so qualified for this job. I look forward to us moving as quickly as we can to move your nomination forward and see you continue to help build a strong America. And thank you for that very much.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Wyden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleague apologized for using the word smear. That doesn't dismiss the fact that on these key facts, we still are basically in the dark. Let me go through the big ones. We didn't get the documents that we need from Secretary Noam. We didn't hear any response to the internal affairs high-ranking official who at the time said the investigation was a cover-up. We still don't have any information with respect to whether the subpoena was handled by the nominee in a legal and appropriate way. So I want it understood that we'll have to see how the chairman wants to move forward. My door remains open to seeing the facts, the documents on the key kind of questions, because on those at least 3 major areas that I've described, we are basically in the dark, and we can't do our responsibilities. We can't carry out our responsibilities to do oversight when that's the case. And we'll go forward hoping that we will get the relevant documents we've requested that speak to the issues I've raised this morning, and we can assess them that way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. And again, Mr. Scott, thank you for your service and your willingness to step back in and engage in service to the country. I remind my colleagues that the deadline for submitting any questions for the record is 5 p.m. on Monday, May 5th. Nope, we have a senator who has some questions. Senator Lujan, as soon as you get your seat.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I apologize for my late arrival. We were in a markup in another hearing, but thank you for the indulgence this morning. Mr. Scott, good morning and welcome to the hearing. Appreciate you taking time to visit with me in the office. Mr. Scott, when we met, we had a lengthy discussion on inspection technology and other technology improvements that could benefit CBP's ability to interdict drugs. Yes or no, are the vast majority of drug seizures, including fentanyl, made at legal ports of entry?
Currently, hard narcotics are primarily seized at ports of entry.
90% or so
The actual
the drugs-
seizures, not the total flow, but the known seizures. I
are
believe
made at
that's
ports of
accurate.
entry?
Correct.
And is it true that an overwhelming number of those are actually made in passenger vehicles being driven by American citizens?
I believe that's correct.
Yes or no, is CBP's inability to screen incoming, and I would contend outgoing cargo, put CBP officers and American communities at risk?
Screening the volume of traffic coming across the border to include the seaports, the rail, it is challenging. And then that is exactly why we're trying to make more investments in the NII, the non-intrusive inspection equipment, as well as the AI behind it, basically using technology to make those officers more and more effective. Because at the end of the day, I think it's really important to highlight a lot of that technology, it just detects anomalies. It takes an actual officer or an agent to determine if there's actually something illegal there or not. So making sure that we use human beings, you use those officers and agents in the most effective manner possible is critical. And I think investments in the technology aspect of it is going to make them more effective. It's going to make America safer.
Appreciate that. Yes or no, do you believe inspection technology can help CBP officers do their jobs more safely and effectively?
Yes, sir.
And yes or no, do you believe implementing a strategy to achieve 100% screening, even if it requires rebuilding port infrastructure or leads to increased wait times, would make our country more secure?
I can't answer that yes or no. In theory, yes, it would, but there's always trade-offs about the amount of money invested and the amount of time and the risk. So in the short term, CBP, I believe, does have a strategy to significantly enhance the number of vehicles that are actually being screened with NII. In a perfect world, we would love to get to 100%, but there's going to have to be a lot of conversations with Congress on how to fund that, because it will, as you know, we talked about, it will require revamping the actual footprint of ports of entry where they're right on the border and we just don't have the ability to inspect before they get to the primary inspection location.
I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, this is one of those areas where I hope that we don't just talk about this, but this is something that we could probably do. It changes the way that we need to approach this, but if we truly want to know what's entering the United States, there's no reason that we could not advance that 100% screening and things of that nature. I know I've chatted with several of my colleagues about this in the past, and my constituents, they don't understand why we're not deploying more technology to work with the agents to be able to figure this one out. And so I appreciate that response. Now, do you believe that CBP should partner with our national laboratories to develop and deploy the next generation of these tools that can identify the molecular or chemical makeup of fentanyl and other narcotics?
Thank you for that question. As I mentioned in my opening, border security is a team sport. So yes, the labs, private industry, the Department of Defense, anybody that's actually looking at these, I think can be a partner to help us get more and more effective and utilize our personnel more effectively.
And Mr. Chairman, this is one of the areas I've suggested for years that the Science and Tech Directorate in the DHS space, the Department of Energy is working with many agencies with work that they do all around the world. There's no reason that more of that could not be commercialized or used in a space where there's a domestic approach to it as well. And it would actually, I think, create some savings in the United States and allow us to have more advanced technology that could be deployed. Now, Mr. Scott, 2021, the Borderplex region was the manufacturing hub with the 5th highest employment in North America, accounting for 17% of all trade with Mexico. The Santa Teresa port of entry in New Mexico ranked number 6 in imports and number 7 in exports among land ports for merchandise trade along the United States-Mexico border in 22. For livestock trade, Santa Teresa continues to represent the largest port along the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, given these clear indicators of Santa Teresa's rising strategic and economic importance, my question is, why has CBP not prioritized the Santa Teresa port of entry for infrastructure improvements?
So currently, as a policy advisor, I don't have that level of detail, but if confirmed, as we discussed before, I'll commit to reevaluating the entire priority for infrastructure improvements and looking at it, because especially on the southwest border, in all the environments, the trade and travel has shifted and expanded dramatically in certain areas, and I know we have not kept up. So I commit to looking into that more if confirmed.
I appreciate that, sir. And Mr. Chairman, if Governor Abbott's going to continue to close ports of entry going into Texas, they go to New Mexico. So maybe we can find a nice way to be able to get this done and push New Mexico up that 5-year CIP plan. Thank you for the time. Appreciate your responses.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Senator Lujan, and you're right. You have been talking about this for years. You're very focused and dedicated on it, to it, and I think you're onto something. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here before us today. We appreciate it. And my colleague from New Mexico is right in talking about the molecular resonance and being able to utilize technologies for detection. And he and I have done a lot of work on the labs and the research work that they do, Oak Ridge in my state of Tennessee, and of course Los Alamos in New Mexico. I want to go to some of the detection and testing at the southern border also. It was baffling to me that the Biden administration stopped doing DNA testing on children that were traveling with an adult that was not related to them. Now, when that testing was done, what we realized, about 30% of all those children were being trafficked, and we were able to extract them from those situations. And the DNA testing has really proven to be a successful tool, and it is not a time-consuming tool. The entire test can process in about 45 minutes. And my question to you is, will you push to make certain that at our ports of entry, when children are traveling with adults not related to them, that they are being DNA tested? And likewise, along that same vein, we had situations where children were being recycled, and they were coming in with cartel members and were being brought across the border and then sent back over the border time and again and some of our Border Patrol would tell us they had seen children as many as 8 or 10 times. And this is a horrific practice. So we have the Prince Act that would give CBP the authority to fingerprint immigrants under the age of 14 to combat and to ultimately prevent this human trafficking. So we have those two items, the fingerprints and the DNA testing, that could and should be used. Will you commit to using these to help protect children that are being trafficked?
Senator, thank you for that question. The short answer is yes. When I was chief of the Border Patrol, we were pushing out that rapid DNA testing. I was I don't even have the right word for it. I was really shocked when the Biden administration shut that off.
Yeah.
Because it was such a good tool and there was really no justifiable reason to turn it off. Yes, I will do everything I can to get those tools back in place because there's no more vulnerable population than the children being brought across that border and being trafficked.
Great. Memphis is the logistics hub of our country. Of course, we have all the Class 1 railroads that are there. We have the Port of Memphis. We have FedEx. And so as we work on this, we know that we're addressing threats. The FBI recently put out a memo pertaining to Chinese Communist Party and their influence along the Mississippi River and about the dangers of counterfeit goods that are coming into the country. And we know that CBP has an important role to play as we look at this supply chain. Cargo theft is an issue. Securing these shipments is an issue. So can you speak for a moment about the importance of these inland hubs and the shipping logistics and what is taking place in our logistics hubs like the city of Memphis and how that affects our supply chain?
Yes, thank you again for that question as well. The trade and travel piece of CBP is critical, but the security starts well before it gets to the United States through programs like CTPAT, where we work with trade partners, we build security mechanisms in place. But at the end of the day, it doesn't stop there. It actually goes into the U.S. to the hub centers, as you talked about as well, anywhere that's going on. It's also very important for our revenue generation to make sure we know what commodities are actually being imported, and if it matches what they said on the bill of lading, what nation it came from, so that it wasn't shipped through another nation to get out of the revenue as well, the taxes as well. It's all critical. I commit to you that I will focus on that just as much as I will focus on the land border itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
On behalf of Senator Cortez Masto, I'd like to enter into the record at this point a letter that she has sent to the heads of the major federal departments about President Trump's impact on trade and tourism.
Without objection. And Senator Lankford, you're up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Scott, thanks. Thanks not only for being here today and going through this process, thanks for decades of serving our country and what you've done in federal law enforcement, and to be able to work to be able to make our country more secure. And so I just want you to know from the people of Oklahoma, we're proud of you and we're grateful for the work that you've continued to be able to do on that.